We're going to talk about interval inversions today. Now, an inversion means that we take the top and we put it on the bottom. Or we take the bottom and we put it on the top. Same difference, right? It comes out the same. And it also means that whatever the top is, we're not going to change that. In other words, it's going to be exactly the same note, possibly in a different octave, or definitely in a different octave, if we change the top note. If we change the bottom note, then we're going to put the bottom note on top. We still keep the same, so it's still the same, right? We still have the same two notes, basically. So let's try that with an interval. So if I have an interval like this, and I want to invert it, I'm going to pick one of the notes to leave the same. Doesn't matter which one. For now, I think I'll just keep the top note the same. And I'll take the bottom note and put it on the top. So in this interval, I have G to C. G is on the bottom. In this interval, I have C to G. Now C is on the bottom. So I just basically turn the interval over, right? That's called an inversion. So I've inverted the first interval. Now, let's name this interval. What kind of interval is that? Fourth. It's a fourth. And we know what kind of fourth. Perfect. It's a perfect fourth. What interval is this? Fifth. It's a fifth. Perfect. And it is a perfect fifth, correct. So a perfect fourth will invert to a perfect fifth. Now there's some rules you can remember about this. It's really pretty simple. The two numbers in an interval inversion will add up to 9. So in other words, if we start with a second and we make an inversion, that will invert to a seventh. A third will invert to a sixth. A fourth will invert to a fifth. A fifth will invert to a fourth. A sixth will invert to a third. A seventh will invert to a second. And an octave will invert to a unison. Right? Because the number for octave is 8, unison is 1. So when we invert an octave, we end up with a unison. When we invert a unison, we end up with an octave. Two numbers equal 9. All right, and the other thing that we're going to do is we're going to say perfect intervals invert to perfect. Major intervals, actually let me do it this way. I like drawing this arrow better. Perfect to perfect. Major inverts to minor. Minor inverts to major. And augmented will invert to diminished, diminished to augmented. That's basically it. That's all. That's the whole thing right there. The two numbers, when we invert an interval, the two numbers will equal 9. A perfect interval inverts to perfect. A major interval inverts to minor. And augmented interval inverts to diminished, and a diminished interval inverts to augmented. Let me go back to this one. A major interval inverts to minor. A minor interval inverts to major. That's all there is to it. That's it. So let's try a couple.